Welcome to another great episode with me, Marlon DeToy, as we get into all things wild and wonderful. On today's podcast, I am going to be chatting about something that's rather controversial and something that I tend to get myself into trouble for on a pretty regular basis. I'm not going to lie. What is the topic of the day? It's basically photographing kills or hunts, documenting it and sharing it onto social media. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Now, like I said, I've upset quite a few people. I have literally received death threats. I am not kidding you. Somebody sent me a DM the other day and just told me to basically get rid of myself, that I don't deserve to breathe the air around me, because I share content that is graphic in nature, of nature. And, you know, to be honest, I wanted to chat about this, and I've been meaning to do this for quite some time. I'll try to do it in a short amount as possible, time as possible. I know everyone has many places to go to, and hopefully you find this topic interesting, because I think if you're a wildlife photographer, if you're a nature photographer, you're going to be faced with this decision at some point or another. Do you capture the action and the drama that surrounds a kill? Now, you know, that is entirely up to you. And I don't think there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. It really comes down to whether you want to shoot that or not. Is that something that appeals to you? Are you sensitive to it? And yeah, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Why I bring this up is, you know, photographing it is one thing, but putting it onto social media for the rest of the world to see, I guess that is the sensitive topic at hand and the issue so many people have with it. Let's get into it. For me, it's a part of nature. So first of all, you go on a safari. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's unavoidable. You know, you can't stop the cute, pretty, fluffy leopard lying in the tree from jumping up, rushing down the tree and jumping on a baby impala. That can very well happen and has happened many, many times. And, you know, even if you tell your guide ahead of time, hey man, I don't want to see a kill. I don't want to see something die. It doesn't mean he's going to be able to give that to you, because it happens quick, and, you know, you can't in that moment move the vehicle or get out of that position, or, you know, because you're going to disturb the hunt, you're going to disturb the animal, and that's not great either. So it really is unavoidable, but I will say it's extremely rare. So you must understand, if you go on safari and you're squeamish and you don't want to see this stuff, it's not going to happen every day. All right. It happens extremely rarely. If you do Southern African safaris, really not common at all to see a kill. East Africa, where you have, you know, 2 million animals migrating together each year, the odds there are so much better. But still, to see a hunt, to see a kill, you have to be lucky, or if you're the one that doesn't like it, really unlucky. Now, it's a part of nature. Like I said, we are there to observe a fly on the wall, and nature does what it does. It's gonna just, you know, it's gonna play out. And for me, I come from a different background. I think it's important to understand, to give this a little bit of context. I find when I share content that's graphic in nature or of an animal dying, it kind of goes in stages, the reaction to this. The first reaction very often is from people who've been following me for some time, dedicated wildlife photographers or nature lovers. And the first kind of comments that filter through are always either, you know, great shot, great video, incredible to witness, tough to see, but it's nature. You know, those are kind of the first comments that come through. And then it gets progressively worse. So then, you know, the next kind of comments that'll come through are maybe people that haven't been following you for that long, and they'll complain that they don't want to see this and it's not really for them. And then if the video or the content happens to go a little bit viral, that's when you really get the, as we call them, armchair conservationists. You know, people that may never have been on a safari and don't really know how nature works. And they just hate it. You know, how dare you photograph this? And this shouldn't be on social. I didn't sign up to see this, etc., etc. But, you know, I understand that, and I know that's the game. Every time I share this content, I'll tell you, it is not for viral content or for likes. In fact, every time I share a video of an animal being taken down, 9 times out of 10, I lose followers, hundreds of followers. Well, people will just unfollow me, and I'm okay with that. because I want to educate. I'll get onto, why I share the content. But the reality is that people are sensitive to it. Some of us don't mind it. Some of us do mind it. And it is got to do with your background and your experience. I come from a guiding background. I've seen this a lot. I've been there, done that. I've seen the hunts. I used to work at safari camps in South Africa. I was a lodge-based guide for 7 years, my last stint with Singita. And we did daily game drives, twice daily, in a predator-dense habitat. And I saw animals die. I saw babies survive. I saw, leopard cubs get killed. All sorts of stuff. It's terrible. But, that's the reality of it. It's nature. These things happen. And, we're not there to outright interfere and change the course of these events. There are perhaps exceptions to the rule, which is for another podcast. But the reality is it's going to happen. And, you're there to observe. If you leave, it's still going to happen. So we've kind of gotten that out of the way. It's nature. It happens. You're going to be on a safari, whether you see it or not. You can count yourself lucky or unlucky. But the fact is, it is nature. And this is what happens in nature. Is it cruel? I think we often like to, add our human element and feelings to these events. I think there's a term, anthropomorphism, I think is the term, which basically means, we give human attributes and emotions to these animals, when in fact it's not. You must understand that when a lion kills a buffalo or tries to kill a buffalo, there's nothing personal. It's not like the lion is trying to do the buffalo harm in the sense that, it's intentional. Yes, it's intentional. It wants to kill the buffalo, but it's not. There's no malintent involved here. There's no hatred. It's purely the lion has to eat. The buffalo is food, formidable food. This is not just a run to the supermarket to pick up a piece of steak off the shelf. This is a go catch the bull with your hands kind of a meal, And the lion knows that, full well knows the dangers it's going to get into on this hunt. And it's just got to, give it horns, quite literally. And they know this. And the buffalo, I don't think they take it personally. Maybe they're a little offended. In their minds, lions should evolve and probably eat grass, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But after an event, if the lion was not successful, then the buffalo will go on with its day and, maybe face off another hunt in a while. But for the most part, it's not a personal thing. We like to give our thoughts on it, it's cruel, and how come the lion, the poor buffalo. There's nothing poor about that buffalo. I recently shared a video of a fight that took 17 hours. That buffalo that died on that day probably put a good number of lions, into lion heaven. I'm pretty sure. And who was there to witness that? Who was feeling sorry for the lions? The buffalo lived a good life. And, he's fought off many, many lions in his day. And on this day, he wasn't able to. And that's the same every single time. The fittest survive in nature. They make it through. The weak don't. It's as simple as that. It's an age-old rule, and it applies to nature still to this day. Probably should apply more to humans as well, but I'm not going to get into that. The reality is also that these lions are not that successful. You see Nat Geo, you must remember that documentary you watched last week on National Geographic, or, Animal Planet 3 and, Planet Earth 3. You're watching an hour-long episode that took years to film. The 3 or 4 kills you saw in that episode, it took thousands of hours to capture that moment. It's not common. They do not succeed often at all. 2, maybe 3 out of every 10 attempts are successful when it comes to lions. Same for leopard. In general, big cats are not. It's not that they're not good hunters. It's just that it's really difficult to catch a freaking animal. The animals all their senses are really attuned to survive. They can hear well, they can smell well, they can see well, they can sense well. And so it's really difficult to catch these animals. And then once they are caught, they're very freaking strong. They got horns and hooves and all sorts of things to protect themselves with. And so it's no easy task for a lion. So if ever you get to see a lion killing something, a leopard killing something, man, you should be in awe of, first of all, being lucky to see that. And the fact that this might be attempt number 8 before this animal had success. That attempt will mean this leopard will get its first meal in a week. It means that the mother leopard that just made the kill will produce enough milk for her cubs to survive. There's more to it, far more to it than just feeling sorry for the prey species. And we have to understand that. I hope you're with me, and I hope you're getting the gist of this. I accept that nature is tough. I do. I'm a wildlife photographer. I'm not there to, just document the pretty and the cute. And I want to see nature at its rawest, at its most authentic. I want to be there for these events. I want to spend hours waiting and watching. And I think there's so much beauty in that. We live in a world where everything happens now, right now. I want this now. I want that to be done quick. This must be fast. Service. And the beautiful thing about nature is going on a safari and 8 days, 10 days is completely unwritten. Nothing is written. Nothing is set in stone. You don't know what you've signed up for. And if it so happens that in those 8 or 10 days, you are fortunate enough to see such a dramatic event play out, such as a lion or a leopard or a puma or a jaguar killing something, that's not cruel. It's not personal. That's incredible to be a part of such an event. And you should count yourself lucky, whether you photograph it or not. That's very personal. You don't have to put that stuff on Instagram. You don't have to share it. You can just watch it, by all means. But for me, it doesn't mean what I'm doing is wrong. It doesn't mean that the other photographers that you follow, when they share graphic content, it's not wrong. That's your opinion. The reality is, as a wildlife photographer, as a lover of nature, as somebody with relative influence on social media, I want to paint the picture of these animals. I want to share their stories. I want the world to see how incredible these lions, why a lion is purpose-built to hunt. Predators are purpose-built to catch, subdue, and kill prey. And if you are lucky to see that, how incredible. So next time you see this on social, don't be too quick to jump in there and leave your comments and your opinions. That's all it really is at the end of the day. If you have nothing good to say, don't say it at all. Just, you're welcome every now and again to reserve those thoughts for yourself. And allow people to share, allow people to share what they photographed. It's incredible to be lucky enough to see this. And if people want to put it on social media, by all means, go ahead. Yes, it's probably good sometimes to put a warning out there, maybe in the caption, but even if people don't, keep scrolling. Don't unfollow the photographer because 1 out of 100 posts contains a bit of action and blood and drama. It's nothing personal, and that photographer loves nature just as much as what you do. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's painted a little bit of a better picture for you around photographing kills and hunts, and not only that, but also sharing it to social media. Remember, it's very, very rare, and if ever you get an opportunity to see that, or if you follow a photographer who's been lucky enough to capture it in dramatic fashion, beautifully captured, enjoy it, appreciate it. If you don't, just move along. Don't deliver harsh criticism. It's not necessary and quite honestly not welcome. I hope you've enjoyed this episode with me. Love to hear from you, so leave comments, get in touch, and keep tuned for more exciting podcasts coming up and Into the Wild with me, Marlon. Bye-bye.